episode 6, the one in the 90s. It doesn't even feel like we're up to 6 episodes. Like we're like it feels like episode like 2 or 3. Like we're in this thing really deep. So this this episode starts because remember in the last episode, your boy Barry he put himself in the chamber because he was trying to like replenish his speed. So the Speed Force, she said that she's using all of her power to restore Barry's speed energy, but the meanwhile he has to stay trapped in the pod. So what they're trying to do now is they're trying to figure out how they can track the energy signatures of all this other Speed Force energy that's out there in the world. Cisco and Chester P is back. They're shipped as Chesco, which I thought was pretty funny. He came up with a device that could track the energy signatures of all the different Speed Forces. So him and Cisco, they're just like, hey, let's go to different places in the city, different towns, and start, putting up barriers and stuff so we can detect these guys wherever they are. So while the two of them are doing that, like they're trying to set up shop. One of the places that they set up shop is in Chester's old town. He told Cisco, he was just like, yo, back in the day there used to be like a juice shop that I used to go to, and then he was just like, this was my home before my grandma and I ended up moving, when I was in high school. So while they're setting up the barriers, all of a sudden this green wave of energy just hits both of them, and then when it hits both of them, it transports them. It's basically they're in the same town that they were setting up the device, but now they're in the 90s, 1998 to be specific. So they're walking around, they're just like, why does everything look different? What happened to my cell phone? Like where's the van? They go into the town and then like they see a BlockBuster, and then Chester sees like the old juice shop that he used to go to. So he's just like, so both of them just like, yo, we're in the 90s, and then you could tell, you knew it was 1998 because Space Jam just came out on video, which was very hilarious because we just had the Space Jam trailer not too long ago. So so they're bugged out now because like they're trapped in the 80s. They try to they're trying to figure out what to do. They end up coming up with it. They ended up Chester ended up going dumpster diving to build a machine that can protect them from the wave energy, because they figured that one of the Speed Forces, one of the Speed Force powers was responsible for what happened to them. So, but they're also trying to find the person too, because they're just like, well, if Speed Force energy is what brought us here, then there has to be like a Speed Force god, somewhere in the town. So they're going around to different people. They're trying to figure out who the person is. They dressed up in the traditional attire, that was out back then, like a little Fresh Prince style. They're interviewing different people, trying to find out who the Speed Force person is. Chester used the device that he had that he built from spare parts. They're going. They can't really find the person. There's this one guy in particular. His name was Dion. He was a football player at Chester, at Chester's, I guess, Chester's high school. So Dion walks in, and then he's just like, oh, he's a big time football star or whatever. And then this one guy, he was just like, yeah, I wish I could be like Dion, because Dion's the man. So they ended up interviewing that guy and asking him questions because they thought maybe he could be the person that they were looking for. The guy didn't really want to talk to them. He was kind of just like, like, you two are weird. You kind of remind me of my parents. And they're just like, nah, like we're hip with the lingo, my man, and and everything. He didn't believe them. They started naming a bunch of things to be like, oh, we're down with the Fresh Prince and Family Matters. And then Cisco brought up the Matrix, and then the guy was like, well, the Matrix hasn't come out yet, and it triggered something in him to the point where he snapped out of the trance that he was in, and he was just like, yo, he was like, he's like, yo, like this dude, the Speed Force energy villain, he's trapped us here, and then he's trapped us in this particular day in 1998. Now that I know that I'm trapped in 1998, he's gonna reset this day. I'm gonna lose my memories, and it's gonna start all over again, because what the Speed Force power was doing, he was making everybody relive that specific same day over and over and over again. So the green wave came in, the guy lost his memories, and he went back to normal. But then Cisco lost his memory this time, too, because he got hit with the wave as well. Chester was unaffected by it because the device that Chester built, it absorbed the green energy, so Chester was shielded from it. So he ended up snapping Cisco out of it. He made a reference to something that's going on today, and then they found out that everybody's in a trance. Everybody's in a mental 1998 prison. But whenever you mention something that's happening in their current lives, it snaps them out of the trance. But then when the Speed Force god finds out that a person snapped out of the trance, they end up, he ends up like putting them, like reversing it and putting them back in the trance. So now they're just like, yo, we gotta get up out of here before this dude does this again. But in order for them to do that, they have to fix the device now, because since he reset the loop, the device that they built that shielded Chester from the Green Force energy, it's now back in pieces and it's broken again. So they're trying to fix. So they're just like, okay, in order for me to fix it, we got to get some more parts. We got to get new parts. So we got to get different parts. So they end up going to a local electronics shop, and then when they go to the electronics shop, Chester sees his father at the electronics shop. One of the parts that they need to fix the machine Chester's father had just purchased. And then Cisco was just like, well, why don't we just go talk to your dad and see if we can buy it from him? And then Chester was just like, well, I don't really want to interact with my dad because he said that my dad is supposed to die tomorrow. He's like, my dad was never really around when I was a kid. You know, he was always into his work. He was always building things. He was always trying to create stuff. And he's going to Coast City tomorrow to showcase like some big invention that he has, some big time invention. And today's the last day I'm gonna see him because he gets into a car accident tomorrow. Chester also showcased some resentment towards his dad because he felt like his dad chose his work over him, and then he never had a chance to actually be around his dad or get to know his dad the way he wanted to. His dad never actually finished, you know, the machine that he was building again because of the car accident. And then, but like I said, but because of that, you know, he just felt some kind of way about wanting to talk to him. So Cisco was just like, all right, cool. He was like, I completely understand that. He was like, but we do need to get back to our own time and stop this Speed Force time god. He was like, so I'm gonna go talk to your daddy. And then Chester was like, no. He's like, I'll go talk to him. So Chester goes down. He talks to his dad. You know, the two of them have a conversation. And he tried to get the part from his dad, and his dad said that he wasn't going to sell him the part because he bought the part for his son. And then because he was like, you know, my son is working on something, but 2 days from now he's going to need this part, so I bought it and I'm going to leave it in the garbage for my son to find. And then Chester was just like, well, if that's the case, if you bought it for him, he's like, why don't you just give your son the part? And then he told him, he was just like, well, if I give it to him, he won't learn nothing. Because one thing we know about Chester from when he first popped up last season, he's a dumpster diver. He likes going around into trash cans, you know, finding garbage, building things from trash. And he learned that skill from his father. Like, his father would purchase things, you know, that Chester would need to build his, you know, all his projects. But his dad would just like scatter them all over the place, causing Chester to find, like he said, causing Chester to find treasure where other people see trash. So that's where he gets his eye from for dumpster diving. He actually got it from his dad. And then that's when Chester realized, he was just like, he said, you're not choosing work over your son. You're deeply into your work because of your son. He's like, you know, your son's the reason why you're doing all this. And he was just like, yeah, I do everything for my son. But he was just like, you know, I'm not gonna, he said, but you know, you got a project or you got some sort of machine that you want to build. He said, I'm not gonna sell you the part because my son needs the part. He's like, but you and I can come together and we can actually build the device you're looking for together, which was cool because Chester and his, like, grown Chester and his dad had a nice little bonding moment where the two of them ended up coming together. He went back to Cisco, he had the device, and he was just like, yo, I actually spent some time with my dad and I got to know him, which made him really happy. And then at that moment, the Time Force Speed Demon person showed up, and it ended up being Dion. Here's where I got a little confused, because I understand whatever this energy entity is, it's basically, you know, like, it's the Time Force. You know, you got the Speed Force, you got the Strength Force. So this person is the Time Force. This person's energy controls time. The time, and the same way how like the Speed Force transformed into Nora Allen, I guess the Time Force put itself inside Dion's body, because when they were talking to Dion, and then he was just like, oh, I got the power to go through time, so I came back to the day, because he was supposed to have like his biggest football game of the year. And he said during this game, he ended up getting hurt. And the second string quarterback came and took his place, ended up winning the game for him. The second string quarterback became rich and famous. He got 6 screws, and then Dion, he said he got 6 screws in his knee for surgery, and he ended up selling used cars. So he said, now that I have the power to control time, I'm going to go back in time. He said, I've come back to this moment to change history, so I'll win the football game and I'll get the glory. So now I'm kind of like, is this really Dion who's just infused with Time Force, you know, energy, or did the Speed Force turn themselves into Dion? Like, that was never officially clear, but I'm just going to assume that energy went into Dion only because he severely ran through his entire backstory. So, and at that point, you know, Dion was just like, you know, I'll turn this whole city into 1998. So he uses his power to spread his green wave throughout the whole city. It ended up transforming some of the other, it ended up reaching Star Labs, where, like, you know, Caitlin, Killer Frost, they got transformed into 70s characters. Joe got transformed into a 70s character. Iris came in looking fine as hell with that afro and that, you know, and that short dress. I was like, solid, you know. So that I actually I very much enjoyed that one. You know, Barry missed out on the whole 70s show, but hey, you know, so but you know, the rest of the game, they're trying to figure out how they can stop the wave, but they're just like, they can't. But they know that Cisco and Chester, they're in that wave bubble with the you know, with the Speed Force. So they're just like, they know that it's up to the two of them to try to defeat him. And then Chester basically, like, he gave the guy like the Flash speech. He gave him the Barry Allen speech, where he told him, he was just like, listen, he was like, you know, like, the past is the past. We can't change the past. All we can do is try to make a better future for ourselves. And Chester did a good job of giving the speech. And it actually worked. Like he talked him down. Dion, he thought about what he was doing, and then he stopped his power. The bubble disappeared, and everybody got turned back to normal. But then he kind of took Cisco's words the wrong way, because he was just like, yeah, you're right. The future is in the power of my hand. The future is whatever I'm going to make it. And now that I have these time powers, I'm going to make my future whatever I want. And then he disappeared and went into the future. So now we don't know what he's doing. We don't know if he's probably destroying the future now, which is going to, and here's a call, because I'm pretty sure we all know by now that Bart Allen, who's going to be Barry and Iris's son. So I don't know what's going on with Nora, but Bart Allen is supposed to show up on the show at some point. My guess is Bart Allen is going to come to the present. He's going to come from the future to our present, and he's going to tell like Barry and and Iris, like, yo, there's this dude named Dion in the future that he's messing stuff up, and I feel like it's your fault, which is why he's doing that. So that's probably how that whole thing is going to tie in my opinion. So like I said, so after that he disappeared, and then Chester and Cisco ended up going back to Star Labs. Throughout the course of the whole episode, Speed Force Nora, she was watching over Barry. Her and Iris spent the entire day together. They were hanging out together, and she was just trying to figure out, she was just trying to figure out what makes Barry tick, like what drives him, because she felt like, because the Speed Force was trying to get to know him. And then she kind of felt guilty at one point, because after talking to Iris, when Iris explained to her how much he's affected by his parents' death, by the death of his mother, the Speed Force kind of felt guilty, because she was just like, I chose this form because I thought it would make him feel better to see a comfortable thing. She's like, I didn't know choosing this form would remind him of everything that he lost, and then she felt bad. And then Iris was just like, no, and she's like, don't worry about it. She's like, you're giving Barry a gift by showing up in the form of his mom, because that's how connected he was to his parents. And then at the end of the episode, like, Barry and Iris, because Barry eventually came out of the thing. He felt a lot better. He has his speed back now. And then then Iris told Nora, she was just like, hey, why don't you just come live with us? Which is Iris's way of getting Speed Force Nora, to hang around Barry so Barry can get to know her more. Barry agreed to let the Speed Force stay with them, but then Barry had a look on his face, because Barry knows, like, with everything that the Flash has been through, and he says this all the time, every time he trusts someone or lets someone in, that person betrays him, and he's tired of being betrayed because of his feelings. So now he's very cautious with the Speed Force, and I don't think Barry trusts the Speed Force, and he shouldn't, because there was even a moment where when Cisco and Chester came back to Star Labs and they were telling everybody what happened, they said that, it's funny, because the Speed Force told us that these other Speed Force entities are actually, they're here to defeat the Speed Force and to kill and take down the Speed Force. But they were just like, Dion, he just wanted to, like fix his past discretions. He wanted to fix his life. He's like, Dion actually didn't even bring you up. And then, she had to come up with an excuse. She was like, oh, well, maybe he doesn't know that I'm here like the other two powers do. And they're just like, oh, okay. But Barry's just like, hold up. Barry's like, you could tell Barry doesn't trust her. And there's something about the Speed Force that you shouldn't trust, because she is being a little sneaky about the whole thing. Like, why would you not? Like, she's not being truthfully honest about the whole situation. And I kind of feel like either she caused these other entities, like maybe it was a pitiful attempt of the Speed Force to try to birth children, and then she accidentally birthed like these new powers. The Speed Force did say that when she got recreated, she was created by the power of love, and she was created by the power of like hope, because Iris's energy and Barry's energy together, like Iris birthed the new Speed Force. So maybe the Speed Force feeling all that love, all that hope, all that love energy, it made the Speed Force birth some new Speed Force energy children of her own, and these are the Speed Force children. These are her Speed Force children out there running amok. So she wants to understand, like how love and everything works with Barry and Iris, so she knows how to deal with her own kids. That's another prediction that I have. So we'll see what happens with that. But like I said before, I don't trust the Speed Force, and she does have some ulterior motives. But the whole thing about these new Speed Force entities being her children, the whole thing about Bart Allen showing up. Iris is basically going to get pregnant at some point during the season, because the way this whole season is going, it's being built around like kids and family and love and like all this other goodness. So, so that was it. And then in the final scene, Joe West, he ended up walking up to Killer Frost, and he was just like, yo, real quick, I just want to let you know that that the cop that just joined my precinct, she's coming for Killer Frost. And then Killer Frost was like, if she wants a piece of me, let her come get some. And I'm just like, that's exactly What? Like she was just like, she's like, tell her to bring it on. And I'm like, it's that type of attitude, which is why she's trying to arrest you to begin with. So you might want to scale it back a notch. So we'll see. Like I said, we'll see what happens with that. I am interested in the Killer Frost thing because I do want to see what happens with this person trying to take down Killer Frost. I definitely want to see what the Speed Force's secret is, when Wells is going to come back, and how Bart Allen plays in the whole thing. But I've already given my predictions on that, so we'll see how many of them are right as the show progresses forward. So thank you for tuning in, and let me know your thoughts below. Let me know what you think's going to happen with the Flash. Let me know what you think's going on with the Speed Force. Like, are they her children? Like, is this a whole Speed Force family theme season? What's going on with that? How the Killer Frost situation is going to end? How good did Iris look in that afro and that outfit? And let's have a conversation and we'll talk about it. So definitely hit me up on social media because we got WrestleMania. It's WrestleMania week. We're doing NXT TakeOver both nights, and we're also doing WrestleMania both nights as well. Still got Falcon Winter Soldier. Still got Batwoman coming up. Black Lightning comes back in the middle of this month, and we're doing Supergirl. So take care, guys. And for the Flash, until next time, for the Speed Force, I'm out this bitch.